Welcome to the Mary Poppins of Startups live show. This month, we're continuing our exploration and shouting out as loud as we can to promote the amazing work being done in the FemTech industry. In episode 81, we talked to Ashiona's founder, Eva Gallant, who is building a platform for women struggling with Hashimoto's disease. In this episode, I'm really excited as we will follow the journey of Dr. Golnoush Golshirazi, a Cambridge University graduate, scientist, and an entrepreneur whose own struggle with endometriosis inspired her to start ScreenMe, a platform that provides tailored, scientifically accurate information to bridge the gap between holistic and diagnostic healthcare. Dr. Golnoush shares her passion for revolutionizing our approach to vaginal and reproductive health and the ups and downs of just building a startup in the femtech space. I'm Naili Makano from Athena Leaders, your host on the show. As a tech consultant and startup advisor, I will answer live the burning questions that you have on your journey to Series A+. Subscribe and tune in every week to meet amazing guests such as Dr. Golnoush today, startup founders, investors, and more. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Dr. Golnoush, welcome to the show. For those who haven't had the pleasure to discover you, because I will say that I've been following you on social media and I've absolutely loved what you're doing at ScreenMe. Can you please introduce our guests to ScreenMe and what it actually means for the change that we need in the women femtech industry?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Gosh, such a big question to start with. Yeah, I mean, ScreenMe was founded with the vision of preventing non-communicable diseases, and these are diseases that are that you get without having a genetic predisposition to. So your lifestyle, your nutrition, the way your circumstances, your environment contribute to them. And as scientists, my co-founder and I, especially as a woman who was struggling a lot with her health for over a decade, it didn't take us long to figure out that in order to make the entire society healthier and to reduce the risk of diseases that we can take control of, we must invest in the health of women. Because only through investment in the health of women are we going to really take charge of the health of the next generation and entire society. Because women are not just, they're never just one. Women either have children, or they take care of children, or they take care of other people in their life. And so by improving the quality of life for a woman, by educating a woman on their own health, you will automatically be equipping them with the information and insight they need to not just make themselves healthier, but also make everyone around them healthier. And so that was really the initial push that we thought, this is where we want to be kind of focusing our attention. We want to empower women with insight into their health. Now, the other part of this was, at the same time, was my realization that our healthcare system is completely, I don't want to say, it's amazing. Our healthcare system is amazing at what it does, but unfortunately, as a system, it's a systematic issue, not a medical necessarily issue, is that women's health has not been a thing. We treat women as a more complicated version of men's health. And so that automatically sets us up for failure. Because
actually, I've got one question on that. It's actually I love the way you put that, right? You said like women's health is kind of like a continuation of men's health. Yeah. What do you mean by that? Because one of the things I found really strange in the lack of adoption or even investment into this area is the fact that it's already recognized that women in general spend quite a lot of money when it comes to healthcare or when it comes to looking after themselves. Yet, as you said, when it comes to the research and the work that's being done, it feels like it's an extension to men's health. So can you give us a bit more example and in terms of that? Because I think that's a really interesting point that you're putting there.
Absolutely. I think, you're right. Women are known to take more care of themselves. And so the world is run by money, right? And interest. So where investors or companies see profit, they will capitalize there. So women like to look after themselves. So there is a lot of push and a lot of money in product creation for women, products that they will. So you'll find there's a million types of shampoo for women where there might be less for men, and that's because women are more likely to buy, to pay more attention, or buy more of the products. However, when we talk about healthcare, it's a completely different topic, especially when we're talking about diagnostic care. Um, it's the truth is that just historically, women's health has not been looked at as a separate identity. Women's hormonal profile, a woman's reproductive system has always been seen as a function of having a child. So any issues around that is not really thought of or looked into. It's just not important. It has not been important enough or investment worthy enough to be looked at unless it starts to fail. So we just don't look at it. Periods, well, as far as history books go and everything, women have had periods and they've been painful sometimes. So do they die from it? No. So why are we going to kind of put more and women are more likely to just get on with it. Women are more likely to not speak of their pain. And so it just goes on. Traditionally, doctors have been men. Man can't solve a problem that that he doesn't know of or experiences. And if women aren't talking about it, then how is that problem going to be identified in the first place? So there's just so many different factors feeding into this. But what we've come to realize is that from a medical perspective is you cannot treat a problem that a woman has without acknowledging her female, biological organs of like the ovaries, the uterus, her hormones, the vagina. These are all very, very important parts of a woman's physiology, whether you want to have a baby or not. And so they have to be looked at in order to help diagnose a woman or help a woman who doesn't fall into those set boxes that have already been set up. And so this is what I realized after over 10 years of pain and discomfort and anxiety, symptoms that affected nearly every aspect of my life, from studying to career to my future. It kind of shadows overall, and it took around 11 years for me to be diagnosed with endometriosis, and that was only an accidental diagnosis. It wasn't like it was looked for. It was just private care insisting on people looking at parts of me and then saying, oh, look, there's something there. And so that is endometriosis. And then even after a diagnosis, we're in a position of, okay, now we have a diagnosis from a medical perspective. And now diagnostically, these are our options. But if you're not trying to have a baby, which I wasn't at the time, then you're, as the problem, my doctor was like, so what is the problem here then? If we're not treating you for fertility, then what are we treating you for? And that for me was a massive wake-up call of, this isn't just about diagnosing women, and this isn't just about treating the disease. This is about helping women take charge of their own health and about improving their quality of life. Because
in fact, when you're talking about your diagnosis and when you find out about endometriosis, one thing that's very interesting is that a friend of mine shares a similar story. I think she was diagnosed 7 years ago. And despite the fact that before they got the diagnosis, she was having a lot of different pain that they were trying to look at. But even now, it's very interesting how they know how common this is happening, and it's happening to a lot more women, especially now the research has gone further. There's still there's nothing in place that can really get you much quicker to, this is the pattern of issues you've had, to the diagnosis. Now, interestingly, I would like to find out a bit more about your, how do you handle the diagnosis to where you are today? Because from the stories I know with my friends, she had to do a lot of heavy lifting herself to be able to kind of get to understanding her body, from nutrition to medication, self-medicating. The
That's
fact that you
exactly.
come from a scientific background, do you think that it was a little bit easier for you, or it was still a bit of a minefield to dive into?
No, no, absolutely. This is exactly what led to ScreenMe being what it is today. It was because even though I was a scientist and I came, I came from a place of understanding the human body, the biology, I was still absolutely lost. The doctors could not help me because they were very good at what they were doing, but they just simply weren't taught. They didn't have the information to help me manage my symptoms, to help me improve the quality of my life outside of medication. And so it was, I was left and kind of thrown into a sea that I was not equipped to swim in. So it was a lot of guesswork. It was a lot of my own research and a lot of private care, finding people who could provide me with the support I needed. So I was trying to get insight into my own body, try to understand more what I'm lacking, what I need, what's appropriate for my unique circumstances. And then at the same time, understanding, okay, so what can I do about it now? It was a lot of struggle. A lot of money spent unnecessarily until I put the pieces in place of understanding exactly, understanding how my body ticks as an individual, understanding what triggers me and what doesn't, getting my supplement regime in place to really, really have an impact. I didn't think it could have such a huge impact on my quality of life. The way I ate, the way I moved, my supplements, understanding my cycle, knowing which parts of my cycle are more likely to give me flare-ups. Just these little things that no one talks about, no one teaches you, and putting them in place. And I went from having to be in hospital a couple of times a year at least, to not having been the past 3 years.
Wow.
Just by making those small changes. This doesn't mean pain goes away. It doesn't mean that your condition is cured. It just means you are living a life that you're more in charge of, and more in control of. And my quality of life is better. My anxiety is lower, and I'm keeping, I'm a step ahead often. I'm keeping track of things, from periods, kind of painful periods, to my future fertility, to my vaginal care. I kind of feel like, okay, I know things, and I can make informed decisions. And I thought this is something that should be available to everyone. And it shouldn't be expensive either. You don't have to be paying £600 for a test. It's not fair. It's not necessary. And you should definitely be able to have access to different types of expertise that can help you take charge of the problems that you have. And so that's why we created ScreenMe, with the idea that we're going to give access to insights, useful information to women at different stages of their life, in order to understand and in order to take charge of the different factors that they can take charge of. And then at the same time, it helps raise the flags a bit earlier for the NHS. So if someone is struggling with something, kind of educating them gives them the power they need in order to then ask for the help that they are entitled to,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
put them on the right path.
But that's actually, I love that, because this is kind of one of the inspiration I had in the title of this episode. Is about removing the guesswork in
Yes.
terms of first identifying what could potentially happen, and then once you have this diagnosis from your healthcare systems, yes, they do provide some support, but there's still this huge gap in terms of how do I manage, and as you've lovely put it, take control of, I'm going to live with this, but there is something that I can do to reduce my anxiety and more. In fact, I'm going to read one quote that I found, a quote from you actually, that I found online, and I really, really loved it. And you said, for too long we have prioritized work, money, leisure, and much more above our own health. You only have one body, and it is time to start listening to it. It is time to invest in your health. And I think this is really what you are making available with ScreenMe. Now, one question that I have, when we're talking about investing in health, especially as a woman, now that we are really starting listening to our body and knowing that there are tools out there like ScreenMe, how early do you think, as a young woman, ScreenMe will be able to make a difference in their life? Is that for people who are, let's say, 30 plus, or they can even come much younger as a woman?
Yeah, no, absolutely, much younger as a woman. I mean, we have clients as young as 18,
Okay,
who
yes.
who actually come to us. A big part of what we do, I think one of the most popular parts is vaginal care. And I've become, as a molecular scientist, and I've become more and more passionate about the role of the vagina in many
Mm-hmm.
different diseases and in risk of disease as well.
Right.
And I think the earlier we become aware of our health, our the risks that we are at, then the more we can take charge of it. By all means, we've got clients as young as 18 who are experiencing symptoms or recurring infections, and they want to understand why, and they want to take charge. Or we've got young ladies who are having irregular periods or very painful
Mm-hmm.
periods, and they want to get on top of it. They want to make the necessary changes in order to take control, and that and not just go on a contraceptive and stay on a contraceptive for 15 years, without addressing the root issues that is going on. So absolutely, but as low as, got clients as low at ages 18. There's women who are having symptoms, who choose to do the test, or there are women who are just simply proactive and they want to get on top of things. There are young ladies who want to know about their future fertility, and they want to get the education in order to make informed decisions. So there's definitely that group. At the same time, we've got a different group of ladies, and this is women who are maybe in their later 20s or early 30s who want to know about their fertility health. They want to make important decisions in life, be it in their career or in their family. And so having that insight empowers them to make informed decisions rather than make decisions blindly or guess what they need to do or where they are, which is very important. And then we have ladies who are trying to conceive. And this is a very sensitive group of not just women but also men, who are struggling to conceive. It's funny, with any other medical condition, we have this like pre-habilitation and post-habilitation where people are prepared for what their body is about to go through, and then they're given advice on how to take care of their body post that kind of procedure. But when it comes to fertility, we don't think of it that way. No one ever
Yeah.
says to a woman, actually, here's a protocol to take care of your body in preparation for getting pregnant in order to help improve your health, reduce the risk of complications and disease. And here's a protocol post pregnancy in order to help you recover from the amazing and miraculous, but also quite difficult time that you've been through. And so we've got women who are undergoing fertility treatments, who we help prepare, improve the chances of success, and also make sure that there aren't things getting in the way, that we could take care of things. Again, vaginal health, huge correlation between vaginal health and fertility and IVF success. So looking at the whole vaginal ecosystem, to see if there is anything there that would potentially be impacting fertility outcomes or increasing risk of disease. Or at the same time, women with endometriosis and PCOS, again, their vaginal health could be exacerbating their conditions. And then the last group of women is a bit older women who are perimenopausal or menopausal. This is this is a topic that is hot at the moment.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies going on board with that. But again, giving those women the insight they need, so that they can take charge and reduce the risk of diseases that are associated with menopause, including things like vaginal atrophy. So we've got all those different groups that we cater for. A woman goes through different stages of life. However, what doesn't change is the importance of their hormones and their vagina in their physiology and risk of disease.
Yeah, that's amazing, and I really love the different section. It's really the way I see ScreenMe is kind of an app that starts with you very early on until menopause and beyond. And in fact, one thing I can definitely relate with what you're saying is that I think it was around 16 or 17, I was diagnosed with polycystic ovary syndrome, and yes, that was pretty much the one time I've ever discussed that with a doctor years ago. And now I'm in my 30s. I've never even had another test to see where things are, how are they evolving, and how that could potentially affect me in my life beyond. And the other thing you've also mentioned, especially when you start talking about menopause and the likes, the change that happens in women's bodies, how it affects her at work.
Yeah.
Yet although it's something that is completely natural, you have no control over it, it's going to happen whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
We are still not, we don't know how to support women going through that journey, or even how businesses and work can support women going through that journey. So I'm really grateful that you're here and that you're doing a fantastic job. For our listeners, please do take a time to really look into this, because I think that's going to be a big game changer in terms of how you can help yourself, you help well, people around you, your coworkers, to really remove the guesswork and get real information. It's not just about go and Google it, because you will find everything out there. And yes, ChatGPT might not give you the answer when it comes to this, but you will find it when you go to ScreenMe. One thing I also want to kind of touch a bit about as well is your own journey as an entrepreneur, especially coming from a science background. Of course, you've done a PhD, I think it was at Cambridge University, and I believe that's where you starting getting a little bit of a taste and flavor for entrepreneurship. Do you want to share with our listeners a bit about your journey into starting ScreenMe?
Yeah, absolutely. So I did my undergrad at Cambridge, and I decided I wanted to do a PhD in molecular biology, genetics, and gene therapy. And so I went to Royal Holloway and did my PhD with Professor George Dixon on gene therapy. And I did maintain my relationship with Cambridge, and it was at the Judge Business School at Cambridge that I discovered the world of entrepreneurship. And it was my co-founder who said, we had the idea, and he said, why don't we just go and enter a competition, just to see, maybe it's fun. And it's called it's the entrepreneurship weekend at the University of Cambridge, sponsored by alumni, and we did that and we came second. And
Wow, it's amazing.
and then that's where it kind of started of, and I remember Hanadi, who was at the Judge Business School at the time, she got in touch and said, do you want to apply to join the accelerator here and make this come to life? And it was a scary decision. I was a PhD student, a scientist. Entrepreneurship wasn't something that I was dreaming about, or growing up thinking, I'm going to be setting up my own business. I always knew I wanted to help people, and I always knew I wanted to do it in healthcare. But I did not, it wasn't this path that I had dreamt about. But it happened, and it was a leap of faith. Deciding, actually, I'm going to give this my all. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to give it my all. And so that's where my journey started. And it wasn't that long ago either. It feels like a while ago. And so we joined the accelerator there, with an idea on paper, really. Since then, things have changed and transformed, and here we are today.
So what was the response when you starting testing, especially at the beginning, when you are quite kind of looking at what the prototype of the ideas, doing a bit of research, and approaching other female all over the place, just trying to understand a little bit more where you wanted to focus on? How was the message received by the general population?
It wasn't a straightforward thing. You have a general kind. We had a goal of like, okay, we know we want to tackle diseases or risk of disease through investment in the health of women, but finding how to do that wasn't easy. And there's so many barriers as well, coming from not being an entrepreneur to start with, not being someone who is from the business world, to being a woman, in that space. It wasn't easy. And then being a woman from a minority group was even further harder, standing up on those stages. And it wasn't, so it was a lot of barriers to overcome. And then standing up and saying, actually, I want to target women, and then seeing the faces of, is that a small market? Why aren't you targeting everyone?
Right.
So that you were challenged left and right. You're challenged on your mission, you're challenged on the business side of things, and you constantly having to overcome this. And I think the hardest thing was to navigate that space, take on constructive criticism and constructive, but at the same time, not lose focus of why you're doing what you're doing and where you're going. I feel like there's a lot of pressure in often kind of looking at okay, how am I gonna, okay, maybe this will make more money, or maybe that is gonna, this is a wave, maybe I should just ride this, and maybe that's going to be more profitable, it's going to attract more investors, and that can kind of put you in a very weird position of losing that your initial passion and your initial focus on the problem that you're trying to solve. I think I found that quite challenging. There's so much that's thrown at you,
Yes.
that you have to really work hard to step back sometimes, reassess, and be like, okay, what am I working towards? What's the problem that I'm trying to solve? Am I still solving it? Do I believe in it? And then you soldier on, and you're gonna hear a lot of cheers, but you're also gonna hear a lot of boos.
Yeah. And in fact, you've mentioned, some of the barrier as a woman, especially coming from a minority, when starting your startup. Do you want to share some of the issues that you found that you experienced even stronger because you are a woman from a minority versus if it was other people that were doing the same thing?
Yeah, there's so I don't like falling into the trap of kind of, because we're a minority group, but there are certain things that we see definitely have an impact. We know that women are less likely to get investment, because they're just seen by investors to maybe be less capable of delivering, and also less stable. As women, again, this comes back to our health. The fact that you are a woman of reproductive age, that is maybe a liability. She might get pregnant. What does that mean for her, for the company, and for her job? So from an investor's point of view, there are certain question marks that are raised. Now, the other thing is our conscious or unconscious biases. We know that women dress like men, act like men in order to be respected more or believed in more. So it's, and then at the same time, we know that there is obviously let's say a privilege that comes with being of a specific racial background, that is believed or known to be achieving more. There's just less representation. So if you look different, it's automatically, if you're represented less, automatically it's just less likely to be taken as seriously, or to be thought that you're going to be capable of doing it. And you feel that. And you really feel that. I mean, I was once challenged by a man about, I was talking about vaginal health, and I was thought, well, being a woman of your kind. And I thought, what does that even mean, a woman of my kind? What are we talking about here? Well, he was kind of saying, how are you going to be able to discuss these topics that are so taboo in your culture? And it just blew my mind.
That's incredible that they even asked that question in the first place, especially when we're talking 2020.
I respect honesty, right? And being able to say, but these are kind of barriers that you do have to overcome. Representation, women from minority groups are less funded. They're less likely to get investment. Why is that? Gosh, we need to write a thesis on why this is. I'm not sure I want to know all the reasons for my own mental but this is the barriers that we face, and representation is very, very important. So I found that that I must carry on. I mean, the minimum, just the least I can do is stand up and represent women who look like me.
Yeah.
And so maybe other women who look like me might feel like they can do this and it's possible to do this. So there's just so much that we need to do, just empower women in so many different ways. And this goes all the way through, not just from entrepreneurship. So, we must start investing in women, first of
Yeah.
all, and then also investing in women from minority groups, because those women are going to be the women who can reach those societies or those parts of society which need to be reached. So diversity and inclusion in the entrepreneurship kind of circle is something that I don't think is still being tapped into. How many founders do we see that are funded who are from minority backgrounds? How many founders, how much attention do we actually pay to companies who have diversity and inclusion at the core of their company values? It's very, very important. So we must start representing, and we must start investing into these, because it's not that those women are less capable, is that we're setting them up for failure.
Yes.
A founder with £4 million of investment is going to do better than a founder with £500,000. It's
Exactly. And in fact, I was speaking at an event as part of the International Women's Day, and I was on the panel, and we were looking at women and risk taking. When we start tackling the aspects on investment, as you've mentioned, sometimes it's quick to highlight potential failures of startup by women, but most of the time it's usually come from the lack of investment and those early struggles. Yet when we start looking at the success that comes with startups and companies led by women, is actually much higher than people think or pay attention to.
absolutely.
And the second thing that was very interesting as part of the discussion and some of the research that I've been looking into as well, is that once a woman goes into entrepreneurship and runs a business, failure is actually a higher price than it would happen for if it was a man, for example. Failure, we all agree that it is part of the startup life
Goodness,
and is
yes.
a way of learning. As you know that when your comeback, you will obviously have a lot more knowledge that you can take in other industry, other companies, or in future startups. So men that fails are more likely to get even more investments. For example, the person who was running WeWork, we all know how the story ended. Yet when he came up with another ideas, he just like that got so much more money in investment. And people are wondering, how can someone who led the company like WeWork with all of these stories that were coming out of that manage to get investments? Whereas when it comes to women, it's a little bit different in terms of how it's perceived and the second chances that are being offered all around.
This is completely true. And I think one of the things that also plays a part in that is, as a society, from a woman's perspective and from a woman's side of things, women tend to lose confidence a bit faster than men do. Um, you know, um, a man might fail and think, all right, I'm gonna get back on. You know,
Yes.
he's gonna have blown like loads of investment, but he's gonna get back up. But whereas a lot of women we see kind of fail and it might cripple them. And it's all the pressure that's there. So we must also kind of try and invest in that side of entrepreneurship in terms of coaching women in order to take ownership of their strengths and their power, redefining failure from a woman's
Yeah.
perspective. I think is really important. I'm guilty of it. When I started this journey, I was terrified of failing. Really, like it was my worst fear is, what's going to happen if this doesn't work? It's a scary concept, but realizing that actually it's okay if something fails. It's okay, because you're not, you haven't lost everything. You've gained quite a lot. You've gained a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge, and with that experience and knowledge you can try again. And the likelihood of failing just decreases every time you try. And the other thing is, ask for help. you
Yes.
know you don't have to swim blindly in this massive pool and femtech, it has grown, it's just boomed, hasn't it? There's so many companies, there's so much happening. It can feel quite overwhelming, and sometimes it can feel quite competitive. um, you know I find it's at times it feels like I'm in high school at an all girls school sometimes also, and you're like, oh my god. But what I'd like to see is more women, female founders, more of these companies coming together and saying we're going to support each other, and we're going to create as a community of femtech founders of companies. We're going to create an ecosystem of support for women rather than kind of be in a competitive field of just trying to pull each other down or trying to outcompete each other. I think women have so much power when they come together as a community. I think we've got that a lot better. You can see it as long as time goes. It's women who help you when you're down, and it's women who heal you when you're not well. We really, our massive part of our power is in that community, and in our power to empathize and to help each other. And I hope to see more of that in the entrepreneurship field, kind of scenery as well. Is all these companies coming together and helping each other rise, especially startups, right? Like if you have a company and you've done it and you have experience, to come and say, I know how this is gonna go, I know the path, and I'm gonna help you navigate it. I'd like to wish that this is going to happen more and more, and that we're going to have more women leaders in the field who will lead other women who are just starting their journey in this scene.
Absolutely. And I say that there is no other ways around this. This is something that there's a lot more discussion. And I believe, as you've mentioned, creating this community of female founders in startups in general, and specifically in the femtech industry, is going to really change the perspective. In fact, one really interesting story, it's from my time at the conference called Staff Summit that was in Madrid last year. So I was working at the conference, a bit of a MC and hosting different discussions. And on the stage, on my stage there, we had a panel on femtech, right? And it was very, very interesting how the perception of what is femtech as an industry. And as you were talking earlier about some of the questions that people will ask you as well are kind of a bit weird. So for example, a woman from your background, how would you talk about vaginal health because of your background, right? So this is a weird question. And my favorite weird question that I mean, the women on the panel, they answered perfectly, but the question was around, would men want to work, for example, as engineers and the likes, would they want to work in a tech business that focus so much on female health, because it's still quite taboo to talk about the vaginal health and the likes. And it was actually really interesting to come to have that question from the audience, and I was just laughing in myself and seeing as well people in the audience, the femtech founders talking about that, and says, well, of course the product is mostly for female, but the company is very diverse. We have absolutely every gender out there, and we have open discussions, because we need to, every single member of the team, from the engineers to the scientists to whoever's doing the marketing, need to understand the messaging and need to understand whether we're talking about a production system, what does it actually mean, the nitty-gritty details. So it's really about pushing those discussion and conversation forward to kind of remove this taboo surrounding women's health, and also promoting the fact that we should just stop thinking about carry on with painful period, carry on with painful situation, and let's find a solution.
Absolutely. It's it's about changing normality, right? What is normal and what is not normal. A lot of women's health conditions are just considered normal, and they've always been considered just normal, whereas they're not. Having painful periods to the point where it gets in the way of your life on a daily basis is not normal. Having recurring infections or vaginal symptoms is not normal. And these are changing. We just have to change them generations. My mom thought it was normal to have painful periods, so how would she tell me as her daughter that it's not normal? She was struggling with it and she thought it's normal, and she was told it's normal. Now I hit 12 and I have my first period and I'm doubling over, and she says, well, it's okay, you've got your period. And if you tell that, if you say this to someone, they'll be like, oh wow, so it's kind of like saying, oh, it's okay, this is how life is going to be for the rest of your life.
Well, this is how life has been for the rest of many people's life.
You know, every single month. And it's okay. No, it's not okay. And it's not normal. And so it's about changing those narratives. It was changing, removing the taboo so we can speak about it. And then innovate, research so we can solve the problems.
Yes.
So we can, so it's multiple layers. We're way behind on that. So we need to educate, we need to innovate, and we need to put systems in place in order to implement and help women. And I think one of the problems that has, because of this wave of femtech and women's health that has actually arisen, is a lot of people call it pink labeling as well.
Do you mind explaining what pink labeling means?
I mean, you know, there's whenever there is a market emerging, there's always going to be people going, oh, I can use this, I can make money out of this, and so, you know, creating products that don't have real value or don't actually solve a problem, and then, but they are, you know, they are products that we can really commercialize and you can really make good profit out of. They're quite attractive to investors because they're just easy to sell. And so low cost, easy sells, big margins, but they're not actually solving the problems that we're talking about. And if anything, they can dilute the issues at hand. So it's really important.
In fact, it's a bit like greenwashing, really, where everything, absolutely everything these days have the label sustainable in the packaging. But when you start thinking about whether is that sustainable or is that a real circular economy here,
exactly,
there's a bit of a gap. But at least the words are out there because it's labeling.
It sells. You know, it sells. So there's a lot of that happening, and I think it's really quite important to raise awareness of. Let's also focus. I'm not saying, you know, it's always going to be there, but let's try and put the light also on companies and founders who are talking about very real problems and they're tackling them scientifically, factually. They are creating solutions, or they're creating devices or services that can really help women, you know, understand, get answers, and take control. So I think there's also that needs to be raised as well and spoken about more, is differentiating between the two different types of services, products, you know, innovators, entrepreneurs. You know, let's try and provide more support and investment for those who are really trying to create change in the femtech space, create value for women and improve women's health. And if any, you know, investors are listening to this and they're guys, you know, men who are interested in the femtech scene, who care about the femtech scene, you know, femtech isn't just about women. It's definitely not. And I think that's the misconception that, for example, vaginal health, every time I've spoken to a group of investors about vaginal health, they're thinking, I mean, this is just talking about women, or this is just the vagina. A man once said to me, an investor actually once said to me, yeah, but this, I mean, the vagina is not very sexy, is it? It's not, you know, it's not. So you have to look at the bigger pictures here. A woman's vaginal health doesn't just look at, you know, isn't just related to the woman's sexual life, fertility life, immune system, but every man who is sexually, you know, in touch with this woman is going to be impacted by that vaginal health. As soon as you start talking about the effect of vaginal health on the risk of prostate cancer, we suddenly we're interested.
People are, oh, okay, we didn't know there was a correlation. How can we help here to reduce prostate cancer?
Exactly. So, you know, when talking about women's health, zoom out. This, not that the woman as an individual is not important enough for you to be doing that or for you to be investing in it, but there is always, you know, it ripples out. Women's health
Mm.
is everyone's health. Healthier women give birth to healthier babies. Healthier women will run healthier households. Healthier women will be healthier at work, and that has an effect on their colleagues and their surroundings. As women, we're a part of this whole ecosystem and society, and our health is not independent of everyone else's. And as a
Yes.
market, we're not less significant as the whole market together.
Exactly. Thanks a lot, Dr. Golnoush. It's been such an interesting conversation, and thanks for sharing openly everything from your own journey, from finding out you had endometriosis, going into Cambridge Judge Business School, and launching yourself into entrepreneurship and creating ScreenMe, which I believe will help, as we've discussed. For those who want to find out more about ScreenMe, do go to follow Dr. Golnoush on LinkedIn, go on the website, and you can get tested for so many issues or female issues, which, to be honest, are things that we should be improving. And you have testing it throughout your life. It doesn't matter what age you are, you will find the tools, and not just understanding more about the condition that you have, but also how you can improve the quality of your life, and so that you can remove anxiety, stress, and just live better, smile a lot, and be even more productive for the workplace. And for
Absolutely.
anyone else listening out there, especially coming from a startup background, don't forget that we run monthly tech and product sessions every Friday of the last month, where we help startups to really look at how they are building the application all the way to growing their technical teams. So if you need a little bit of help, do drop by. So for the final message that we have, and I really want to hear from you again, Dr. Golnoush, there's many people out there, regardless of gender, that that have ideas, especially coming from a science background. Last weekend, I was working for Cambridge and Oxford University. They have this program called Rising Wise, and it helps women entrepreneurs, especially coming from a STEM background, that could be researchers, to think about where to go next. And it's such a daunting journey to come from, well, I mean, from whatever industry into entrepreneurship, and you've done it. So for anyone watching who are probably thinking or just about enter the world of startups and are worried about everything that they have to learn, from the business, the mindset, the technology, what is one key advice that you can share with them right now?
Gosh. um, I know how scary it seems, and you don't know where to start. I would say just take the first step that you see in front of you. Um, don't get overwhelmed by the many others that are ahead of you. Just take that one step and keep taking one step after another. Focus on just that one step, and you will find your way through it. So definitely, I would just, it needs courage. You have to take a leap of faith, but take that one step and then take the one after that. I think is the best advice I can give. And ask for help. Ask for,
Yes.
you know
Ask for help one step at a time.
definitely one step at a time. Don't think you have to do everything at the same time. You have to learn everything at the same time. No, just one step, the first one in front of you, and ask for help, because it's the bravest thing to do, is actually say, I don't know how to do this, can you help me? And you'll be surprised how many people will say yes.
Yes, brilliant. Thanks again for that. That's such a beautiful advice to finish the show on. Ask for help, and one step at a time. We are here for you. Don't forget to connect with me and Dr. Golnoush on LinkedIn, so that you can continue finding out about the amazing thing that we do on the podcast, and more importantly, on what is going on at ScreenMe as the company is evolving. For everybody out there, remember, let's design a happy and productive workplace playground together.